discretion is advised.
What is the dumbest thing you've ever done while you were high? I saw tiny bugs crawling over a little flower among the grass. I realized they had never heard music before. Poor little guys. So I put my phone next to the flower and gave them the concert of a lifetime. The bouncer at the entrance of the club put his arms out to indicate that I should do so for him to pat me down. Instead, though he wanted a hug, so I hugged him. I convinced myself that I could really walk and it was just mind over matter. And despite my boyfriend and friends telling me not to, I rose up from my wheelchair and promptly fell under the pub table. I was covered in bruises and I had a sore bum for days. My boyfriend and his best mate had to retrieve me from under the table. I microwaved cheesecake because stoned me found it odd that it was always served cold and not hot like it should be. And on a related note, piping hot cheesecake will take those munches away real quick. Needed to go into the gas station to get another Dutch. Noticed for whatever reason my best friend's boyfriend had a full chicken costume in the backseat. I decided it would be funny to wear just the mask into the gas station. Didn't realize how bad I ducked up today. I learned the girl at the register started screaming for the guy in the back room. They had just been robbed 2 weeks prior. Not dumbest but laziest. I microwaved something, and when I opened the door to get it, because it wasn't centered on the turning plate, it was a bit further from the door. So I closed it and restarted the microwave another 5s to get it closer to me, so I didn't have to reach so far back to get it. One night I go in the backyard to get high. I leave the backyard lights off so that my older neighbors can't see what I'm doing cause I'm immature like that, lol. I got a glass of ice water in one hand and I stepped into my pitch black backyard. Every time I move I hear a sound like there is an animal stalking me in the many bushes in my backyard. Whenever I stop the sound stops, but once I start moving again it sounds to me like the leaves in the bushes in our backyard are rustling and there is an animal in them. If I try to go back toward my back door the sound follows me. If I move further into the backyard the sound follows me. I'm legit freaking out thinking there is a big animal stalking me in my backyard. Turns out it was just the ice in my drink clinking every time I moved. I never felt so stupid in my life. A sober friend put the other high guy's phone in my bag. I found it funny, so I left it there. I completely forgot and took it home with me. Later on an alarm goes. So I go investigate and then find the phone. Tried to tell the guy and called his phone. The phone that was in my hand. Once I was eating a burrito like a ravenous beast and straight up bit my own finger. Another time I was gaming and my hands were cold as I can get bad circulation. Well, I sat there thinking, man, it would be great if they made socks but for your hands and thought I had a great idea. 10 seconds go by and then oh yeah, gloves. Had a good laugh at myself for that one. Playing video games with my bro. Split screen MW3. I'm absolutely crushing it, then I realized I'm looking at the wrong screen. My dude is in a corner moving and shooting the wall. So this is when I first started smoking pot. I was sitting watching a movie in my apartment when I noticed a red dot light on the wall. It took me a while to figure out where it was coming from as I lived in a top floor unit. I noticed the laser light projecting from the backyard of a house that was on the other side of the complex fence. It was super dark and windy and it created shadows and it looked like someone was posted up in the yard pointing a gun with a laser light in my direction. So I freaked out. I called 911. When the officer was on the way I realized it smelled like pot. So I quickly lit an incense burner and he shortly arrived. I had a feeling he thought I was just super stoned, but when I showed him the red light and he saw what I saw he freaked out too and called for backup. There was a whole crew of officers at my apartment evacuating the building. The responding officer stayed with me until his team went to investigate. Well, it turned out that this poor little older than dirt lady opened the door confused, of course. She directed the officers to the light, and it turned out it was a motion sensor that she had got knocked over, and the wind was blowing the tree and bushes she had, so it looked like people were in her backyard. From that point on I will never call the cops while high about lights. The cop peeked through the window the light was coming through and drew his gun and told me to get down and army crawl to the kitchen while he called for backup. One time when I was in high school, my mom went grocery shopping, and of course I used her time away to smoke a joint. When she came back with the groceries, she called me out to the car to help bring them inside. I put some Visine in, slipped on my flip-flops, and headed for the car. As I'm bringing the groceries in maybe 2-3 bags at a time, I'm bringing them all the way to my bedroom instead of the kitchen. My mom locks the car, walks in the kitchen, and says, "Where the hell are the groceries?" I'm standing there eyes bloodshot because the Visine didn't kick in yet, like, oh shit. Ate cat food. When I lived with my parents they had 2 cats. They would buy huge bags of cat food and put the food in a 5-gallon bucket with a lid and keep it in the garage, usually to keep it safe from outdoor animals, since it's the country and there is possum, raccoons, mice, and other small critters. Well, I got home one night from hanging out with friends and seen the bucket of food was open. I went inside and the self-feeder was close to empty, so I decided to refill it. When I went to the bucket of cat food I wondered if it was stale cause I wasn't sure how long the bucket of food was left open. So I ate a handful and chewed a couple times until I realized what the hell I was doing and spit it out. I still don't know if it was stale or not. It was just crunchy lol. I got super blazed one night near the beginning of pandemic lockdown and went across the street to the drugstore to get some chips and such. As I approached the automatic glass doors I saw a person standing on the other side, so I waited for them to come through. I stood there waiting for what felt like an eternity. I was getting frustrated. Like, what's up with this clown? Can't they see I'm waiting for them? Then I realized it was just my reflection. Was with a group of friends with a bong in rotation. My turn in rotation, so I spark up. It was quite windy, and I'm not the best, so it was taking me a bit. One of them said something that caught my attention, so I stopped what I was doing to say something. And then I went back to trying to spark up. For the life of me, I could not get it. I was trying another 5 minutes and I'm thinking, why the duck can't I do this? The wind ain't even blowing anymore. I was attempting to spark up an open water bottle which was a bit to the left of the actual bong. 2 of my friends were dead ass watching the whole time thinking I was just ducking around. But no, I genuinely didn't even notice immediately. At least it gave all of us a good laugh. Not me but my sister, we were both high at the time. We were cooking dinner. Can't remember the dish. I think it was poblano tacos with some Monterey Jack. Idea is, you hollow out the peppers, put the cheese inside, then put them over an open fire to char the pepper and melt the cheese. Well, while one was cooking, I was prepping another. I can't remember how long it was, but for a good minute or so, I hear my name, the Chios, in a soft and quiet voice. Took me a bit to realize she was trying to get my attention. Then I noticed one of the peppers was on fire while she was standing there, staring at the stove, still whispering that she is, and not doing anything about it. Pepper tasted great though. Me and my housemates at uni once got incredibly ducked on S and ketamine. For about 2 hours we kept trying to motivate ourselves to collect up our things and go home. We eventually managed to sort this out, but took at least another hour to get down the stairs and out of house. Once we were out on the street I said, "So what the ducking hell are we doing?" And my mate said, "For the last time, we are going home." To which I replied, "But that's a house," which it was. 3 hours of sorting out going home from our own house. We just went back in. I do this all the time, and it pisses me off. I get some juice or milk from the fridge, take the cap off and be like, "Oh, I forgot to shake this." Proceed to shake juice all over myself, kitchen floor and my dog. More milk has been poured into my German Shepherd's ears than she probably drank as a puppy. One time I got a new bong, and I was with a big group of people smoking, and I got so high So this guy brought like a blue light or something. And he turned it on and said nobody look directly at the light, but I thought he said look directly at the light, so I stared at it intently for like 5 minutes. And then suddenly everything went black. A few minutes later the lights turned back on, and it ended up being that they turned the lights out to make something glow. But I 100% thought I had gone blind for a solid 5 minutes. Back in high school my buddy and myself would drive around and hotbox a few nights a week. We were always prepared with eye drops, gum, hand sanitizer, and body spray so we wouldn't smell like dank when we'd go home afterwards. Anyways, one time we forgot all of the post-chiefing essentials and were stressed that our parents would find out that we were blazed after a session. We ended up finding a bottle of eye drops in his car, but still smelled pretty ripe. For some reason, we thought it'd be a good idea to roll in a random person's front yard to get the smell of bud off of us and get more of a natural, outdoors scent on ourselves. So we go out and do some log rolls in this person's yard. Got back into his car and he dropped me off at home. I walk into my house and my parents are on the couch watching some TV or something. And they ask where the hell have you been? Apparently the persons whose yard we just rolled in just cut their grass and my grey shirt was covered in grass stains, and I had dirt and grass clippings and shit all on my clothes and in my hair. It didn't get any of the kush smell out of my clothes because they walked up to me and immediately knew I was stoned. I ended up getting grounded for a couple weeks and my friend and myself had a good laugh at ourselves the next day in class. I randomly think of this moment once in a blue moon and it cracks me up. Christmas about 3 years ago, I was home alone visiting my parents and got very high. The internet was being slow, so I tried crawling through a very small end table instead of moving it to get access to the router to reset it. I got stuck, and in my efforts to free myself I knocked over a very ornamented Christmas tree. I left it knocked over and blamed it on the cat. Was with my best friend from college. We pulled into the drive-thru for some food. Got to thinking, man, this line is slow. I can only estimate we didn't move for 20 minutes. Turns out we were parked behind a work van without anyone in it, and they were inside doing some kind of remodeling. The worst part was, when we finally drove around to the speaker, they told us they were closed. It was the middle of the day and there were clearly other customers. We felt bested at the time and had no rebuttal, and retreated and cut our losses. Obligatory disclaimer: don't drive high. Kids, you got DoorDash and shit these days. Back then you had to smoke your way 15 miles through the snow to the nearest McDonald's. Lived in a fourplex in West Berkeley. Property manager lived upstairs with her 3 mixed race children. Oldest kid looked just like a young Bob Marley. He and his friends would pass by my window on their way upstairs after school. Eventually we start regularly acknowledging each other and then talking. At a certain point, months in, conversation turns to weed and how one of the friends has some he's willing to sell me. Says, come up later before you head out to SF on BART. Couple hours later I head up there, knock on the door, walk in. Apartment is like a mirror image of ours. There are about 12 young black men sitting around playing Sega on the couch, sitting around the kitchen, eating and drinking. Everyone sees me like, oh hey white guy, but it's all cool. Guy rolls a joint, we smoke it. I get really high, give him some cash, get a dime bag. Feeling good, feeling cool. Later guys, shaking hands, walk to the front door, open it, duck. It's dark outside. Where's the outside light? Must be out. Step outside and close the door behind me, but I can't see shit. Stand there for a second to let my eyes adjust, because I really can't see, and it would be dangerous to just step and fall down the stairs. When faintly, and then, suddenly very clearly, I see the coat hangers. My wife and I had booked a hotel stay for March 2020. The city we were traveling to had just announced a citywide COVID lockdown the day we arrived. We ended up spending our entire vacation weekend in the hotel, eating edibles, getting drunk, and having sex. We were literally the only guests in the entire hotel. One night, I'd already had several edibles and some alcohol and we decided we needed to order from a 24-hour cookie place. The guy calls. and says he was outside, so I run out of the room, make it was past the front desk, get the cookies, and go back upstairs. When I got back, my wife pointed out to me that I was in nothing but my boxer briefs. I was so focused on hot chocolate chip cookies that I forgot to put on clothes. My friends don't let me live this down to this day. About 5 of us were chilling at my apartment back in 2008 smoking some darn weed. I had been smoking pretty heavily for a year or so before this, so I had a decent tolerance, or so I thought. Anyway, we smoke out on my balcony and finish up and are all completely shredded. We go inside and decide we should play some Guitar Hero on my Xbox Multiply 360. Sounds like a jam to me. There's actually enough of us to use all the instruments and make a 4-man band. So naturally I booted up the PS3 and got Cloverfield off my Blu-ray shelf and put it in. I sat down in between a couple of buddies on the couch. Nobody has said a word since we came inside. God, we were blazed, and proceed to boot up the deleted scenes. I had watched Cloverfield once and wasn't even that crazy about it. We get about halfway through the second deleted scene and my buddy sitting next to me with his Guitar Hero mic in hand and lifted up to his mouth goes, "Dude, why the duck are we watching Cloverfield's deleted scenes?" An hour of straight stoned laughter ensued. I snapped out of it, but man, I realized how good the stuff we had was that night. Later we went and got tacos at Jack in the Box. The driver was sober, don't worry, and had a great rest of the night. One of my favorite memories. Did meth once. Didn't know it was meth. Snorted it. Well, I was out of my mind on the phone to a sex line for God knows how long. It gets worse. As you can imagine, I'm half rubbing one out the whole time, so I aggressively and abrasively destroyed my penis. The second part is I spent about $700 on a phone call. The third, and most methy part is, I was stood by the window for better signal, and my wardrobe at the time had a screw hanging out of it. I didn't notice I was scratching into it for hours. I cut my side to pieces and didn't even feel it until the next day. Well, day after the next day, because I was a paranoid mess for 24 hours or so. Do not recommend. Too long. Didn't read. I was young and didn't know what cocaine was. Found out what meth was though. I kept bringing out plates from the cupboard for my food. I had amassed 3 plates on the counter because I kept forgetting I had already brought one out. My dad walked down the stairs and I panicked and ran to the bathroom with 2 of the plates because I didn't want to have a conversation with him about why I had 3 plates out for my apple and yogurt. He let the dog outside and I ran out of the bathroom with the plates and sat down to eat my food. He came inside and asked me why I took plates into the bathroom. I again panicked and told him it was for safekeeping. I still have no idea how he never busted me for being high that night. I tripped and fell face first into the ground holding the bong, and it shattered into my body. I was wearing a jean jacket, so it didn't pierce my body, but it ducked up my arms pretty bad. If I was just wearing a shirt I would have almost certainly died, and even worse, my jean jacket got ruined. My friend and I took mushrooms in college and our campus has 1,600 acres of woods farmland and we followed a raccoon around for several hours. For what purpose I still don't know. We also boarded an abandoned Christmas tree farm and got drunk and stoned and went at midnight to cut down a Christmas tree, but no flashlight. We felt around, selected one and returned to our room with the ugliest, baldest tree in existence. My buddies and I were smoking out of a hookah. I was sitting in a recliner. It got to the point where I was just so ducking high, I couldn't think straight at all. I went to lean back in my recliner while holding onto the hose. My dumbass ended up tipping the hookah over, making the coal on top drop to the carpet floor. Soon, I saw little fires spark up. I yelled for the wife to bring water and she came with a pitcher of water. Flooded the section to find all these burn marks in the carpet. Thank God I didn't burn down the house at least. Was stoned with my brother watching Ip Man when he grabs my arm firmly and tells me straight face that he somehow knows Chinese. I say what? And he says again terrified I don't know how, but somehow I can understand Chinese. This clown was reading the subtitles and thought he knew Chinese because he could understand what they were saying. Was at a gas pump trying to fill my car up, but every time I tried to enter my password for my debit card it said transaction cancelled. I figured Wilik, this is broken. I proceed to drive to 3 other gas pump and did the same thing with the same results. On the last one I realized I kept pressing credit, which requires you to put in your zip instead of your password. Ran around the neighborhood looking for my 2 indoors kittens who were supposed to be in the other room away from the smoke. I noticed that we accidentally left the window wide open in that specific room and panicked. I woke up my neighbor in the middle of the night who had been doing his wife, and also called the fire department for help because they could have been stuck on a neighboring roof. Turns out they were still in their cage in our room where I put them because we had food out and they wanted to partake. Also, they just watched us running around like headless chickens searching for them, lol. Drive. Not clever. Don't do it. Luckily I had a wake up call. I was driving home. Very high. In the rural area where I grew up at 2 AM. Suddenly, sheep. Ducking sheep everywhere. Little walking clouds blocking the whole road. Nobody ever explained to me how to deal with this. Start thinking. I'd probably know what to do if I was sober. Big nope. I sit for 20 minutes trying to figure out the protocol. Sheep behind me now too. It's the sheep prison. Eventually they wander back into the field. The last one looked right at me with a let that BLS and look all over its freaky long face. I did not imagine this. Never drove high again. Click subscribe. If you enjoyed this video,